My name is Woodman. I'm a licensed minister with the Southern Baptist Convention, and I've been asked to contribute a couple of word studies and background information on Gnostic and Christian usage of a few Greek terms. Gnosis. What does it literally mean in Greek, and how is it different from other Greek words for knowledge like episteme or logos? The literal meaning of gnosis is experimental knowledge or personal knowledge. It comes from the Greek gnosko, which is the act, not the state, of knowing. The implication is of experience, direct contact, or intimacy with the thing that is known. Compare the Hebrew yada, which is translated to know, but is used in Genesis, for example, to speak about the knowledge Adam had with Eve in order to produce children. There are lighter words for knowledge in Greek that don't imply this intimacy or experiential understanding. Oida means to perceive, to know about. Epistemi means to be acquainted with or to be thinking about. In the Christian scriptures, these words are sometimes used to imply a shallowness or incompleteness of knowledge. Gnosis, on the other hand, would imply a complete and hands-on understanding of something. If you saw a horse in a field, you could say, I know, oida, that horse. If you went to horse races and saw it there frequently, gaining an understanding of its behavior, you could say, I know, epistemi, that horse. But if you were to own that horse, riding it, grooming it, feeding it, and living with it for many years, then you could say, I know, gnosko, that horse. It is from this latter idea of knowledge that the Gnostics get their name. Whereas apostolic Christians got their understanding of God and religious matters from public written documents, as Irenaeus of Lyon writes, the Gnostics would claim that their understanding came from secret oral testimony of personal spiritual experiences. Logos is sort of its own territory within the topic of knowledge. It can mean something said, a testimony, a word, an account, and it can mean something to do with the mind, reason, logic, computation, or motive. The Greeks understood speech and thought in a very interchangeable way. Speaking implies a mind, and a mind implies divinity. Indeed, some believed in a divine character living in the unseen realm called the Logos, the divine reasoner, the divine word. This was a being like, but in some ways opposed to, the demiurge, the ignorant or malicious creator god who created the physical realm out of chaos. One was the maker and unthinking ruler of the fundamentally evil plane where humans live. One was the redeeming mind from whom all reason and order flowed. You can imagine how groundbreaking it would have been for the gospel writer John to say these two were actually the same person, and that the immaterial mind God had become a human being. Anyway, the difference between the Logos and Gnosis would be similar to the difference between a light bulb and light. If Gnosis is experiential spiritual knowledge of the unseen realm, the Logos is that unseen spiritual being who is being experienced. And as both Gnostics and Christians would agree, albeit in very different ways, to gain true Gnosis of the Logos was the path to transcendence and divinity. Pleroma. Literal meaning, and how does that meaning inform its theological use? The literal meaning of pleroma is probably the fullness. In Christian theology, this word is closely aligned with the person of Jesus Christ, who fulfills the law and gives gifts to men out of his fullness. Though not always used as such, pleroma can carry a divine aspect, not dissimilar to the Hebrew shalom, the peace, completeness, or abundance of God. In Gnostic theology, the fullness speaks of the heavenly realm. This is where all divinity lies, perfect and invisible. It is this plane of existence that Gnostics seek to know experientially, and to this place that they wish to go, departing the plane of corrupt and empty matter. Through the Christian incarnation, the pleroma comes through the divine and material Jesus to all mankind, without per se doing away with physical reality. In Gnosticism, the pleroma is fundamentally separate from material, and the semi-divine minds of men must leave here to go there. Archon. What does it mean in ordinary Greek usage, and what's the significance of Gnostics applying it to the rulers of the material world? The word archon comes from the Greek arche, to begin. The verb archo is to begin, to come before, or to rule, depending on the context. In ordinary usage, an archon was a ruler, a magistrate, a prince, a ranking official. Generally speaking, it was used for human rulers, not per se divine ones. In the Christian scripture, archons are rulers in a broader sense. Sometimes rulers of the Jews or Gentiles were archons. Sometimes the prince of this world who is in enmity with God. Sometimes demons or angels. And in the revelation to John, Jesus Christ himself. This expanded usage is consistent with some Old Testament writings and the apocryphal books of Enoch, where it was understood that the sons of God, divine beings present with God in the beginning, were eventually given power over the nations God disowned at the Tower of Babel. Throughout the Bible, these corrupt divinities were rulers who rallied their human forces and resources against each other and against the will of their Creator. In a vision of Daniel, the angel Gabriel reveals that there is a prince who rules over Babylon, and another that rules over Persia, and that both of them are fighting spiritual battles against the forces of good. In the letter to the Ephesians, Paul writes that the Christian war is not against flesh and blood, that is, humans of the material realm, but against the rulers, archos, authorities, exousias, and cosmic forces, cosmokratoros, of darkness. In the Gnostic cosmos, the archons are much the same as this latter Christian usage, those who literally came before, arche, the world and mankind, and also reign over, archo, the material realm. As in Christian scripture, curiously, these 7 or so archons of the hebdomad are understood to be evil. Indeed, to the Gnostics, these sub-creators under the demiurge were considered antagonists to the soul, preventing humans from leaving the material realm. They were higher than the world of devilish powers, but the lowest level of the Gnostic Godhead. As with the Christian worldview, using a political term shared with human authorities may be a way of casting suspicion or distrust on the structures of human government. But where the Christians are told to submit to their human authorities, the Gnostics are sometimes told to subvert them. Sophia. The word itself, and why naming a divine figure Sophia, is theologically loaded in a way that, say, naming her something else wouldn't be. I've noticed that the Greeks had a funny tendency in their language to use the same term for a thing as for the divine person associated with it. Uranos is the heavens, and the titan of the heavens. Hades is the underworld, and the god of the underworld. As we progress in time from classical Hellenic religion through the Ptolemaic period to Neoplatonism, this realm-ruler synonymity seems to continue. Logos is the divine attribute of reason, but also, eventually, a pseudo-demiurgic intermediary between the absolute God, or monad, and the spiritual man. Agathos is the divine attribute of goodness, see Jesus telling the rich young ruler, "No one is good but God," but might also be a divine person of its own as the Agathodaimon, good God, and Tyche Agathae, the goddess of goodness and good fortune as well. Sophos, or Sophia, in Greek refers to wisdom, clarity, or skill. We get our word philosophy from this. Philos for love, Sophia for wisdom, love of wisdom. With the understanding of divinized Greek terms, Sophia seems to continue the same concept. This is not merely a being named after wisdom, this is a being encapsulating wisdom. Of course, there's more than just Greek influence happening here. The Old Testament has a personified divinity called wisdom, now considered to be a prefiguration of Christ by the Christians. And as the Gnostics built this particular part of their cosmos, Jewish and Christian syncretism was highly involved. The name divine wisdom is a little ironic, considering that in most Gnostic etiology, Sophia is actually the being who falls from the pleroma and consequently creates the evil material world. In any case, the high aeon Sophia is eventually redeemed by the Soter, weirdly enough the Christian figure Jesus Christ, who will eventually restore the pleroma to its rightful state and give human beings the Gnosis to escape the material world to the spiritual one. This redemption, as above so below, is, by the way, the central drama of the Gnostic universe.